All right, we're going to try something here. Yesterday we did a review with Efren, and we didn't record it, but I wanted to try one today and record it. So Tesla got some, strong buying out the gate today. You can see it gapped from 296, opened up at 300, up 4 points there, and just took off out the open. And it had a lot of flow on flow algo. So there was a lot of buyers, and I said I wanted to be a buyer of Tesla, and my risk was these people in this box. So Effort got stopped out. I did not, and we need to go through why. And this is the art of trading. What makes trading so hard. I'm going to show you where I played it correctly, then I'm going to show you where I played it incorrectly. So this is what it looked like when I wanted to play the box, right? It's like, all right, let's come back into this zone and allow it to, sometimes I'll have hard stops. Sometimes this isn't a time to have a hard stop, in my opinion. So as it's coming down in here, I think 3 ads, 1, 2, and then 3 down here at the bottom. Once this bottom one filled here, like what my goal was to take this back to this midpoint of this box, sell out the 2 buys, and then just leave this one and have a free trade, and either it's going to be a small win or a small loss. That was the goal, and that's what I did. So the question becomes, well, why didn't you stop out? Because you did break this, right? So if we're looking at like this, if we're looking at this 5-minute chart, the question becomes, when does the chart break? If I were to show you Tesla on my E-Trade, you can see that bottom line here is what, basically 303, a little bit above 303. That would be considered your value area low, right? Now, usually, not always, but usually you're going to have, you're going to be tested on your lower buys if you're getting filled. What that means is if your third one gets filled, it's coming really close to your stop out, and you need to be able to either know exactly, have a hard stop and say this is it, or be able to feel it, watch it. And what was happening on Tesla here, it was here. Let me actually see if I can show you on this one. So do you see how this was the low right there on Tesla? And if you look over here at the Qs, there's your low. So what did the Qs do that Tesla did not? The Qs are making lower lows. Tesla is not. The Qs are making lower lows again. Tesla is not. I'm still giving it its shot. Does that make sense, Efren?
Yes.
Do you have any questions on that?
Yeah. So when we were looking at it, excuse me. So that you're playing the box. So even before we make those lows, right?
Yep.
You're playing the box, and we're talking about not wanting to be under those people.
Yes.
Now, as soon as we dip under those people, we're still looking at 302.27 as the ad, right? And then the circumstance of what is happening with your cues give you more context. Am I understanding that correctly? Is like that's why you didn't stop?
Yeah, yeah. But it was actually higher. Like I think it was like right there was the ad 302.92. It was basically 303 is where that last ad was. And when I added, I said, hey, this is like the Efren stop loss. This is kind of like you've got your position, what you wanted, but the chart isn't fully broken down yet, and there's still hope. Now, what happens a lot of times is once the chart does break like that, it comes back and does this. And so that's where my Efren stop loss kind of comes in. So at that point, the goal was to just bring it back to this 303, 304, 305 area, and then look for a possible another rollover for it to actually break down, kind of like a descending triangle look. But it's kind of like the art of it, or it's hard to just have strict numbers and say stop out below 302.92, because you don't want to stop out on a wick down. This happens a lot. And if
Yes.
if you are going to do that, you need to make it lower. Now, let me give you another example of doing the same thing but doing it incorrectly. Well, this doesn't have the. So in the QQQ, I didn't have my levels drawn. Like this line, I added in. It wasn't drawn this morning. Lack of preparation, rustiness, being greedy, being stupid, whatever reason, I didn't trade this one correctly. So, like right out the gate, as the Qs started pulling down, it's a little bit easier to see on. Let's do it this way. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna take show extended hours off. All right, so this was the idea on the Qs. We were getting pretty extended. So that picture right there, we're getting pretty extended on the way down, right? Like the pull from 557 down to this 554, this 3 point drop pretty quickly into this decent VP here. And it's like, all right, well, where is that broken down level? It's like, well, really it's about right there, right? 553.43. And if we were to look at E-Trade, what would that be? Yeah, somewhere around 550. Maybe you could say 550 to I'm sorry, 553.50 to 550, somewhere in there. Is you start getting below these guys, your chart of holding up against these levels is kind of broken. And so I was thinking that we would probably hold really above 554. This chunk, I didn't even think we would come down to this 553.50. And so it's like, all right, well, as I keep adding to this, because I know a bounce is coming, it's like, all right, yeah, 553.50. Yeah, okay. Well, we broke the lows here. Okay, yeah, 553, right? You can do the same thing. And what we do as traders a lot of times is we continually convince ourselves that it's okay to continually add and just keep adding the losers. And even though I know a bounce is coming, the one time the bounce doesn't come and the Qs drop 2%, that's going to eat like 20 profitable plays, and you can get rid of a week or a month's worth of work by continually adding to these losers. So I was doing the same thing on the QQQ as I was on the Tesla. The problem was, and what I did wrong was, in reality, what I should have had two options on the Qs. One being, great, we can play these people, right? Like we can play these guys, that's fine. We barely wicked out. Same idea that happened on Tesla. It just wicked me out, right? That's fine. But if you are playing these people, there's a huge buy order that's sitting here at 552. I should have given it room for this gap close. You see what I'm saying? Like down to these people. This is where my stop out should have been if I'm bringing it that low. If I'm not going to bring it that low, I should have stopped out sooner in what would have been the basically point of control of yesterday. Giving it a little bit room underneath that is fine. And what that would look like is basically stopping out below this line here. And the reason that is, it's like, all right, we broke that 554. The point of control didn't hold. Let's either keep the position on, give it the room all the way down to gap close, or cut and then add as it comes into that gap close area. But what ended up happening, what I did was, all right, let's add. All right, I'm done adding. I've got my 3 ads in. If it breaks the low, I'm out. And it barely broke the low, literally. That low was when I said, all right, if it breaks low, I'm out. Well, why? I wasn't prepared because I didn't see that we were so close to a gap close. Like that's where you should size in, right there. So I'm stopping out right where I should be starting that position. So this is the art you have to kind of walk. Does that make sense, Efren? Any questions on that? So one I did correctly, one I did incorrectly.
Yeah, no, I totally get the cues. I understand what happened there, but can you pull up Tesla again?
Yeah.
And you know what? Actually, let me print. Let me put a screenshot over here. Oh man.
Man, look at Jets. Just took off. All right. Got it.
Okay, so that was my first buy, second buy, kind of at the bottom, and then I literally got stopped out on that wick. Now, I'm trying to, I guess, to quantify playing the group that we wanted to play against, but still keeping an eye on what's beneath us.
Yeah,
Because it almost seems like it
it
almost seems like two different things.
yeah, it might help, and maybe I'm not quantifying this. Turn on a pre-market, and then snip it in there.
Okay, give me a second. Let me put my replay back where it was. There.
Spy. Red to green breakout, huh? So not always, but normally when you get a consolidation, you're doing something. There's a reason that it bounces from that level. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? It's kind of like retest. So what we were retesting here it's the group from pre-market, and so it's like that. The Efren stop loss. Do you see that VP right on the bottom side of your red arrow that's pointing up?
Yeah, I actually have a blue line there, which is a pre-market VP.
Yeah. So what's happening here is, and I should have quantified better. Yeah, we want to hold these levels. If we hold that line, we're holding these levels. even though the breakout or the bottom of the box that we drew is, what is it, line 303.31 area, right? This bluish green line is your, you're below that box, but a wick down to that level and coming back up, you're fine. Does that make sense? Why? It's like we've retested that breakout line, and it's like it's okay to hold. And again, it's such a big deal with sizing. If I was full size, I would have to stop out. Like there's just no argument. You have that hard stop because you can't continually add. And so for me,
That's
it's
right.
like, all right, yeah, it broke down. Let me grab it down here at the very low. This is going to be my stop. This is going to be my hard stop now. And so
Yeah.
it's that holding of it's allowing the chart to move and do what charts normally do, learning how to keep yourself safe while allowing the chart to move and knowing when you're in trouble and when you're not. So on the cues this morning, I thought I was in trouble because I didn't know there was a buy right underneath it. That was just stupid mistake, lack of preparation. Tesla, I knew there was still a shot that this support level holds. It did, and then when the Q started going down and it didn't break after, that gave me more confidence that it would rip or had the opportunity to rip. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does, and now that was actually going to play into something else that I was going to say. So you're right. The whole thing is on sizing, right? So ideally, what I should have done with the size, knowing that I have two shots, was take that first one to see if we bounce off that area. Actually, I should have taken the point of control of the people on the left, and then take my last shot when it was coming to that VP area of the pre-market
Um,
with stop right below
yeah.
that.
So what I would say on that is I don't think you're going to have a definite rule on that. So what I mean by that is I think your buys were fine. Your two buys, that's fine. If you're only going to have two buys and you're going to let it come down to that area, that's fine too. If like sometimes it's okay to pay up because you don't know if you're going to get that Efren stop loss. You know what I mean? Like you just don't know. So there's never a right or wrong on this. But what is always right or wrong is the idea of letting the chart play and knowing if you've given it the opportunity to succeed while allowing it to fail. And what that means is give it the time, but keep yourself safe. So if you bought those two, what you'd have to do is say, can I handle it if instead of stopping out at that green, whatever that number was, 303.31, you know what? I'm going to stop out if it gets to $3 lower, 302.31. Well, if you can't handle that with these two, then yes, you need to lower your buy. Does that make sense? So if
Yes.
if you can handle the loss by allowing it to go down there, yeah, it's fine buying right there. There's no right or wrong in that. But if you can't, then yes, we need to lower the buy.
Now this is kind of counter to something that we've talked about before, which is, your last chance ad is kind of before your stop, right?
Correct.
Because you want to give it that chance.
Yep.
So on that premise, if I was okay to go and stop, let's say at 301.50, no, 301.80, give or take.
Yeah.
Then my last ad, then I should have given it space so that my last ad is on the bounce of that VP.
The reason that you never have that answer is because it's the grading of the setup. Sometimes I just want in a trade. I don't care if it comes all the way down to 301.50. I don't know if it's going to. I just got to get in. And so I will pay up. But this is another thing. I'm never at full size. I like literally like I've been at full size a couple times on long term investing, where I'm like, I remember on AMD, I was like way too big. I was like, all right, I need to start getting rid of some of this, be a little bit more aggressive. But there's no right or wrong answer here. The logical solution is always, yes, buy it as close to your stop out as possible. 100%. Absolutely. But sometimes the chart is telling you to get in sooner. And so as long as you get in as soon as you can with the correct risk that you have. So there are times where I'll get my last buy and it still drops $1 or $2 or whatever it is. It's because I want it in this thing and I'm okay with it going down there and moving around. And if I want to, again, this is because it's me, I can still add to it. Does that make sense? So in the situation where you can only buy two, it's all going to be depend upon the chart setup. It's like, is it an A plus setup? If it's an A plus setup, I'm willing to pay up. Is it a C plus B minus setup? Then yeah, I need to get as close as possible to my stop out. Does that make sense?
If it's a B, you need to get as close as possible as your stop out. Oh, on your last ad.
Yeah, on the last ad. So like
Okay.
if it's an A plus setup, like on PLTR, yesterday I was like, hey, you know what? This is an A plus, A plus with a weakness in the market. Maybe it's a minus or something like that. It's like if you wanted to buy this up at 139 and 138.15, but then allow it to come to 137.46, that's fine. If you were like, you know what, I'm going to buy it at 139 and then again at 137.46, that's fine too. There's no right or wrong there. But what is right or wrong will always be your risk profile. If you can't buy it at 138.15 and allow it to come down to 137.46, then you can't buy it at 138.15, right? You have to wait.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's right. Because your risk level, you have to wait for when it makes sense for your risk level.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So in this case, with the two options that I had, I came to my stop. It was kind of what I wanted to lose on this trade. I still feel like I could have played it better. But I had to stop.
Yeah, we could have always this. You can always play things better. That's true. You're right. And I could have played it better. I could have played the cues better. Like, yeah, okay, great. Let's take it and move forward. This is a great. I think what's happened here is a great. This needs to happen like literally. This kind of thing needs to happen like 50 more times. Not the clean setups. We need the murky, muddy setups. That why am I staying in? Why am I not? So you can get the feel for how and ultimately what it comes down to the overall theme of this and what I had to learn was I'm not giving the stock enough room to do what it would normally need to do before it goes up. That's what I would always do as a trader. And I would be so hard line. I'd be like boom, boom, boom. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? I'm not giving the stock the ability to do what would be considered normal, and me still make money. And if you're not doing that, you're going to stop out a lot. Well, that keeps you safe, which is the first step to learning how to trade. It doesn't allow you to make a whole lot of money. And so this is
Yeah.
that dance that you figure out where, all right, I'm safe now. I trust myself. The hard line, and again, for me, it's easier because this is who I am as a person. I'm like, we'll figure it out, right? Let's go on vacation. We don't need a room to be booked. Let's just go there. Let's go to the beach. We'll find something. Where your personality, I would guess, is more like my wife's, where it's like, no, we have to have a room booked. Everything has to be planned line by line.
Yes.
And that type of trading is harder because you've created these rigid rules, and many times those rigid rules don't allow the stock to do what it would normally do. Now, the tag on the end of that is I still have those rigid rules, but I've given it a lot more room. I've given it a lot more freedom. You still
You have
have,
flexible. You have
yeah,
flexible rigid rules.
yes, exactly. I have flexible, rigid rules, right? Isn't that funny? And so you go with the flow and you're able to adjust as long as you're protecting yourself, but you shouldn't need to adjust too much because if you are, you're not prepping correctly, like on the QQQs.
Okay, that makes sense. The adjustment should come from what's happening in the market at the moment, not from what happened before.
Correct. Exactly. Yep. So it's like on the Tesla, it's like, yeah, let's try to catch that box area. And that's why I'm always like 303.50 ish, right? It's like 301.20 ish. Like I don't ever have these hard lines. Now, I will say, hey, now that I've kind of given it the room, right? Like after it happened, I'm like, all right, this is my hard line now. It's like, yeah,
And yeah, you actually said I have a hard stop here.
yeah, exactly. So I give it that room, and then once it's done it, it's like, all right, this is the opportunity. It should go now. And if it doesn't, you got to get out. And I did it wrong on the Qs. I did it right on Tesla. On the Qs, if I knew that 552.50 was a huge opportunity to buy, I wouldn't be stopping out at 553. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. So now, wait. You had your mouse right at the bottom of 302.92, right? Yeah, right there. Now, let's imagine we're at that point in time right now, right? And Tesla keeps going down. Where would your stop be? Because we're saying, okay, we're going to play the people of that consolidation on the left. There's a possibility for us to go to 302.92. There's a VP from pre-market there. That's where we wanted to take. What if that breaks? Where is your stop?
I'm going to pull up the.
Because that's a subjective thing, right?
Yep.
Sometimes it's the break of those people, and sometimes it's not. You know, with
So,
all the
do you remember
strict.
what I said on Tesla? When did I say it's my hard stop? Do you remember?
No, I thought it was actually. I thought it was actually the bottom of that box. Whoa.
Let's see. Let's take that off. So right there. So it was on this timing. The low or the time is 10:02. So at 10:02, I said if we break the lows on Tesla, I'm out. And I didn't decide that until 10:02. So I didn't decide it at the low, which was at 10 o'clock. I decided at 10:02 that that was my stop, the lows.
Why?
So this was coming into that like Efren stop loss, top of the flag from pre-market, right? This is as low as I want it to go. I also said the same thing on the Qs.
Yeah.
So over here was my hard stop, and it wicked me out because I didn't realize right there I should be a buyer. And right here was my hard stop. So in my mind, if the Qs start to roll over from here, it's got a ways to go down, right? And it could be an all day fader, and I can't just continually try to buy the dip on an all day fader. That's where you blow thousands of dollars. And so at that point, I was like, look, if we start getting any lower, I got to get out. So the argument that can be made here is, all right, well, Donnie, how could you play Tesla right and the Q's wrong? If you were going to be a buyer at 552.50, which is, wouldn't you be a buyer on Tesla as well? Does that make sense what I'm saying? So like,
Yeah, of course.
I shouldn't have stopped out here. Like I didn't realize literally 50 cents lower, I would be sizing in pretty dramatically.
Yeah,
Well, that same thing could have happened on Tesla. Does that make sense? Like,
that's right.
why is this one played right? Well, the reason this one's played right is because there's nothing underneath Tesla that says buy it. Like the next buy on Tesla literally would be 300 and then most likely 295, right? You'd be looking, you've got some range down.
But you were also not expecting the Qs. You thought that was the last on the Qs, right?
Correct. And so what literally is happening in my mind is at 10:02, I'm like, all right, that's my low. That's my stop, right? If it breaks low, I'm out. Well, at 10:07, the Qs broke the low and Tesla didn't. And so at that point, it's like, all right, I stopped out of my Qs, but I didn't stop out of the Tesla. So what does that mean? There's divergence there. Tesla's actually held the low while the Qs didn't. And do you remember I said if the Qs don't hold this, we're probably going to get stopped out of Tesla? Well, the Qs
Yes.
held it, but it just wicked me out because of lack of preparation.
Okay. Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate the analysis.
Yeah, of course. All right, let's stop this recording.